We have a story of a medical mystery right now on keeping kids healthy. Hi, I'm Dr. Winnie King, and I'm coming to you from the lobby of the Children's Hospital here in Montefiore, New York City. So don't be surprised if you hear ambulance sirens in the background. It's perfectly normal. Now, on to that medical mystery. It's a disease so difficult to diagnose that it can stump the doctors who are trying to diagnose it. Now, there's no definitive test for it. It has no single known cause, and the symptoms are so vague and so varied that they can defy a simple diagnosis. Now, Christine Mezzarandino found herself living through this real-life medical mystery. Here is her story.
Do you have to take any medication? Do you want to take some pills now?
Do I want to? Not really.
My mom tells me that I danced around the house and was just very happy, very social little girl. I don't remember not knowing how to be a dancer because I was in dancing school from the age of 3. There's pictures of me in a lot of community theater as I became, let's say, 12, 13, kind of becoming a teenager. And I think that's when I realized I wanted to do it more professionally. I think the first time I noticed something was wrong was when I was in performing arts my freshman year. I went from the first 6 months not having any real problems to, by the second half, not being able to get up for class. I started to sprain ankles. I hurt my knee. But all these things were kind of slow in the beginning or very nondescript. So I think it was very easy in the beginning to say something was wrong, but maybe I was just clumsy dancing.
She was told she had chronic fatigue, Epstein-Barr, fibromyalgia. Sometimes even doctors said right to me, maybe your daughter just doesn't want to go to school.
I don't think you know what wrong is because you don't want to imagine the worst. But then when you get 5 sprained ankles or 5 fevers or black and blues or you can't breathe, and then all of a sudden it dawns on you, although you don't want it to, you don't want to see it, it dawns on you that this is a lot more wrong than you wanted it to be.
And I knew in my heart as a parent that something was wrong, something was very wrong. So I just kept saying, something is wrong with my daughter, period, the end.
Well, Christine and her mom, Janet, are here with us right now, and welcome to the show, both of you. We're so glad that you're here. You know, Christine, what was it like to be given all of these diagnoses?
It was very confusing because I think that although you want to know a diagnosis and you want to know what it is that you're fighting or to have an answer, you were raised to think that doctors have all the answers. And when you're receiving different answers from different doctors,
that had to be so confusing for you.
It's so confusing and frustrating.
Well, Janet, I know you shared in that frustration, and it is hard to go against the doctor. How did you find the conviction to keep fighting for the answer?
I just knew something was wrong with Christine. Something was very wrong. She was very happy at her high school. She had lots of friends. So that wasn't the issue. That wasn't the problem. And she couldn't get up. So no matter what we did, even following the doctor's advice, nothing seemed to help. She was still sick. It wasn't
even
working.
what they were giving her wasn't working. So clearly the diagnosis had to be wrong. Yeah, well, you know, Janet and Christine would not give up. Let's look at what happened next.
When we went to Mayo Clinic on the last day, because you see doctors all week, and on the last day you see whoever was in charge of your stay. I sat in front of him with my mom, and he spoke directly to me. He said to me, I think you could have lupus, but the one thing we can definitely say is you shouldn't dance again. You mean not for Martha Graham, you mean not for New York City Ballet, but I can still dance. And he went, no, Christine, the whole reason why your patella is moving is you're rubbing your bones away. Like, this is not good for you. You need to just stop. And I just cried hysterical. I screamed, I yelled, I cursed. I didn't even curse at a 14-year-old, but I cursed. I was mad, and I wanted to leave. And I remember getting up, walking out of his office, and telling my mom I wanted to go home.
Well, who wouldn't want to go home after being told something like that? You know, Janet, what was your reaction when you actually heard the word lupus?
I remember that day vividly, and I was devastated because we did want an answer, like Christine said. And one part of me was happy to finally hear a diagnosis, but the other part of me was just so sad that I knew that our lives were changed.
Yeah, permanently changed and irreversibly changed. I want you to meet Dr. Tom Lehman. He is a pediatric lupus specialist at New York's Hospital for Special Surgery. And he's also the author of the book, It's Not Just Growing Pains. And boy, that says a lot right there. Thank you so much for being here on the show.
Thank you.
Let's first of all back up a little bit and talk about what is lupus.
Lupus is one of the so-called autoimmune diseases, but what's really happening is not that the body is reacting against itself, but that the body thinks there's some kind of foreign invader. And it's an effort to try and eliminate that foreign invader. It's causing bystander damage. As it tries to attack something that's not really there, everything around where it thinks there's something is being damaged and destroyed. As a result, it can injure the kidneys, the lungs, the heart, the brain, many different parts of the body.
Yeah, it's so ironic that the body is actually trying to help and in the process causes damage. Now, Christine was told by her doctors that she couldn't dance again, and I'm sure most folks are wondering, what does dancing have to do with lupus?
Lupus affects so many different organ systems, the bones, the joints, the skin, stress. All of these things contribute. But when you bring the disease under good control, with many people, we are able to restore them back to their normal activities.
And this is a tough disease to diagnose. I've taken care of many patients with lupus, and they'll tell me it was years of multiple tests, multiple doctors. Why is it so hard to diagnose?
Physicians don't think about it in children. That's the biggest problem. Whenever you have a child who's failing to thrive, just not doing well, and has multiple different problems that may even seem unrelated, you have to think of lupus, run the appropriate testing, and when necessary, refer the child to the appropriate specialist.
And Dr. Lehman, this is a disorder that we can pick up with tests. We can actually make the diagnosis definitively.
You can certainly make the diagnosis based on ANA testing and additional signs and symptoms. ANA testing alone does not diagnose lupus. Many people have a positive ANA test who don't have the disease.
Right, and that is a blood test that you actually draw us into the lab, that coupled with the symptoms. And is there a strong family history that one can look at, like, oh, my aunt, my uncle, my cousins had it, and if there's no history in your family of lupus, that you don't have to worry?
No, unfortunately, that's not true. Often there is a family history, but much more often there's no family history of any similar disease.
Yeah. Now, was there any family history of lupus with you guys?
I do have a few cousins, but no direct, no immediate relatives.
Now, I know parents are wondering, well, you know what, my child wouldn't get out of bed yesterday. What are the signs and symptoms of lupus? What do I need to know about this?
Lupus can cause many different signs and symptoms. Many people think that you have to have the butterfly rash on your face, but that's really only present in less than a third of children who start out with lupus. It's failure to thrive, it's fatigue, it's not feeling well, it's not doing well. Those symptoms have many different causes. Physicians have to remember to include lupus in the list of things that they exclude when children have those problems.
Yeah. Did you see any of these types of symptoms in
We saw
Christine?
so many different symptoms on Christine. It was hard to put them all together. She was extremely tired, the fatigue, more than fatigue, exhaustion, I guess would be a better word. Joint pain. Her knees used to be warm even as a young child. She had warm knees and hips that were hot.
Yeah.
So it had a lot of different symptoms.
And how did you feel with all of this? Did you feel like there was something wrong with you, or did you think, oh, I'm just growing, growing pains, I'm just getting bigger?
I think it's a very hard balance for family, friends, and yourself between encouragement to go past those things and acceptance of saying, no, something's really wrong.
Yeah. Well, as Christine and Janet told us when we visited them at their home, all these physical pains can lead to real emotional pain as well. Here are some of the stories they remember.
I think as a family, no parent ever wants to see their child sick. I remember my father carrying me into the bathroom. I couldn't walk, or me crying hysterical in the night because I got Charlie horse all over my body and I couldn't sleep because my body was shaking. And those are horrible memories, and those are horrible things to contend with.
It's funny how sometimes something very small sticks in your mind and you just remember it, sometimes even more so than a bigger event. And she looked up at me just frustrated with waiting hours in the emergency room. And she said to me, Mom, I don't remember ever being healthy. And I just felt like just punch me in the gut. I mean, it was just a very, very sad moment because I hardly could remember when she was healthy either.
Your whole life changes. I always have a constant reminder that I'm sick. I can't forget. I would love to forget, but when I forget, I end up in the hospital.
Wow, so it really is an emotional roller coaster. Well, then on top of that, there are some side effects to some of the medications, in particular steroids, that are often used for this disorder, and it can lead to weight gain, hair loss, and those are really not wonderful side effects, and it can be hard for patients to stick with it.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so important to find an experienced physician. Many physicians think steroids are the only treatment for lupus, but now we have many other therapies, and the goal of every physician who takes care of children and young adults with lupus is to use the lowest possible dose of steroids and minimize those side effects.
Yeah, because when people hear steroids, you know, they think Hulk Hogan. You know, they're going to wake up and they're going to be these big muscular people, when in fact, low-dose steroids can be very, very effective. Were you prescribed steroids?
Yes,
You
and
were?
I found that they were very helpful at the time that they were diagnosed.
Was it hard for you to get into the mode of taking a pill for this?
I always say that my first job before I started my career was the job of a patient, because it is something you need to do every day. So it's something to almost learn a new routine.
Yeah, and I know as a mom, it must have been very difficult for you to give her support and then, you know, figure out how to deal with it yourself as a parent.
Yeah, I think it's so hard just to go through teenage years as it is without having an illness. And then when your child has an illness, you want to remind them to take medicine. You want to remind them to do what you know they should be doing. And without doing that, without clashing and taking over.
Well, teenage years are rebellious years. You know, that's when you're trying to sort of find yourself. And now someone's telling you that you have to do something. And I remember being 16. And when somebody told me I had to do something, that meant, oh, no, I don't have to do that. But with lupus, Dr. Lehman, failure to follow through with these medications can lead to some very serious long-term problems.
Failure to follow through with the medications is the biggest problem we face as physicians, because lupus is like a slow-burning fire, and every time you let that fire get out of control, a little bit more damage is done, and we can't always fix that damage, so every little flare-up causes more and more trouble. You have to take the medicines, you have to follow through, and if you have questions, you have to contact your doctor and discuss them with him, because you can't let this fire flare up out of control.
Yeah, and I hear you. You know, you're really talking about this relationship with the doctor, finding someone that you're comfortable with, someone that you can really talk to. Now, it's true, though, that once the diagnosis is made, that's really just the beginning. There's a lot that needs to be done to actually control this disease.
Absolutely. Lupus is a lifelong condition. You need to get an experienced physician. You need to get somebody you trust and whose directions you're going to follow, because you and that patient or the physician are going to be dealing with each other for a long time.
Well, we really wanted to understand what it's like to live with lupus. So Christine and another young woman named Natalie Fouché allowed us to take a look at a typical day in their lives. We begin with Christine.
You gotta have a sense of humor. You never know what you're gonna wake up for. And I'm mad because I thought I'd be a rock star and go to sleep last night without my hand braces on. And now I wish I did. Because they're supposed to keep them straight, and I probably slept all curled up, and now they hurt. Oh, not too bad either. I don't have a big old rash across my face. This is great. This is like I knew. Oh, we have to get medicine in, unfortunately. Which is not great, but you gotta do what you gotta do. And my friends complain about taking an aspirin. I'm like, that's horrible. And then you have to learn to do everything without saliva, which is like fun. And I have to take a pill that gives me saliva, and I'm 26 years old. So this is the part of the day where I feel 80. So I have to take medicine to move, medicine to swallow, medicine for my head, medicine for my heart. So today's like a relatively good day, and I still feel like a Mack truck hit me. That's what's sad, is that this is a good day, and really it feels like someone beat me up in the night. I'm like not even hungry right now.
You sure? Sure. You gotta eat something with the medicine, you're gonna get sick.
This is like the key. I could take my medicine, I can eat a good breakfast and not the donut. I could sleep really well, I could do everything right, and still, I'm gonna be sick. It's not gonna go away. So sometimes it's hard to have the incentive to do everything right, because why bother if you still don't feel well? So it's like, how could you possibly start the day feeling like you can conquer the world when you can't even conquer breakfast?
It's raining, it's cold, I've walked for half a mile, and I'm really quite tired, but you have to walk back.
Every year we walk in the Lupus Walk, and that's like a celebration day. We celebrate Christine, and it's wonderful because family and friends walk with us and with her, and it's just a happy memory that we can associate with having a chronic illness.
That's better. That's better. Now we can walk.
I really wish, if I could have anything in the whole world, I wish that for one day I could be healthy.
My name is Natalie Fouché. I am 14 years old. When I was first diagnosed with lupus, I was 13.
This is a child that was born after we had a first family. We had grown children, so this is our baby, this is the treasure, the unexpected child.
I started playing tennis when I was 6 years old. I really enjoyed the sport because it's an individual sport, not like all the other team sports. I've been in over 20 to 30 tournaments in my tennis career, and I have won over 30 different trophies for either being a semifinalist, finalist, or winner. Because I don't play as much now. Now I'm not doing too well. My symptoms at first were severe weight loss, hair loss, seizure-like chills. When the doctor told me I had lupus, I didn't think much of it because I didn't think it was serious. I thought it was something that was temporary or could go away.
The first time we heard about the illness, it threw me into despair.
I just feel so thankful that that I am still able to do the things I was before, and I should just appreciate what I have, because many people are worse off than I am, and I'm just really thankful that I can still do what I used to.
Life, I could say, is tough right now with this, but I think we'll get through it. We'll get through it.
I love my mom.
You bet they're going to get through it. Marie and her beautiful daughter, Natalie, are here in the studio with us right now. And, oh, I see tears in your eyes, even watching that, you know, and remembering, you know, what it was like. It's still hard for you. You know, Christine, she's at a different place right now with this diagnosis of lupus than you are. You've sort of been through a lot. What would you want Natalie to know?
I think that when you get diagnosed with an illness young, it's very easy for your mother or your family to take ownership and to be in charge. And I think that as we get older, I think it's really important to take responsibility for your own illness and maybe make your own doctor's appointments or ask your own questions or explain your own symptoms. I mean, I kept a journal at one point to find out good days and bad. I felt that was good. And just really getting more involved and kind of starting to own your illness for yourself.
Yeah, and that's kind of hard to do, you know, because it's a big shock, first of all, to even hear this. And it's kind of easier to sort of think, Mommy, just take care of this for me. But as you get older, it does become important. Now, Marie, what would you want to ask Janet? Because she's a mom that's sort of gone through this whole process. What do you want to ask her?
How have you been able to cope with this for the past 11 years?
I would say I coped with great difficulty. It was not easy. You have difficult days just like your child does, because it's probably the hardest thing, you know, a parent goes through is to see their child ill or not feeling well. And I got through it with a lot of good friends, support. Even the Lupus Alliance has a support group for the parents, and took one day at a time and just, you know, always had hope and always tried to associate some good things, you know, with the illness, even though that's difficult to do, but it's possible.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about it, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, it's just hard to, as a parent, you know, to see your child suffering and to sort of feel somewhat powerless to kind of make that all go away. And then there are moments when you have remissions, and it seems like, oh, maybe this is going to go away. You've been through that.
I am the worst at that. The minute Christine is starting to feel well, the minute she has a good day, a good week, a good month, I kind of forget she has lupus, and I want to forget she has lupus. And then when it comes back, it's almost like an avalanche, and it's almost sadder to me that it's starting all over again, which it isn't.
Right. It's just part of it's the ups and downs, the hills and valleys, and it's important to know that up front so that you'll know that there'll be times when things are a lot better, and then there are times when things aren't so wonderful. And do you still play tennis?
Oh yes, I still play tennis, but not as much as I used to, but I still keep active.
And do you find that you're having more problems now with tennis in terms of achy joints? You know, with Christine, it was her knees. Did you have a problem?
Sometimes the arthritis acts up in my fingers and it's not as easy to grip the racket, but I still am able to play as much.
Yeah, and you're pretty good from what I understand.
I guess so.
No, I saw all those trophies, and I know you're really proud of her, and you've got such dreams for her. And I think that's the thing that we really want to bring forth in this show about lupus, is that it's tough. It's hard for parents to see their children go through this. First of all, the diagnosis has got to be made, so we know what we're dealing with, and we don't have all these diagnoses flying around in the air. But then you sort of have to get through it yourself so that you can then be helpful to your child. And where are you in that process?
I believe she still has to continue with her life. When we see that she cannot perform as well, it makes you feel numb and feel, okay, we have to keep at it. But I think she's doing well though, so far.
Well, you had another question that you wanted to ask Christine about, you know, telling this to other people. How do you want to ask
For me,
about that?
one of the hardest parts is trying to tell people what I have when they see I'm not feeling well. How do you explain to other people what you have?
I didn't for a very long time. I did keep it a secret. I would always say I had the flu or I had other things, which looking back might not have been the best choice. I think honesty is a good thing. And then I actually wrote this story in college called The Spoon Theory, and I just was trying to describe to friends how it feels to sometimes have more energy or less energy, or usually analogies, but I tried to be as honest as possible. And slowly, you do find that your good friends and your good family do understand. And it does, you know, it helps, though, to keep talking.
Now you're getting married pretty soon, and that's so exciting, you know, and it's such good news because we want folks to live their lives and not feel as if, you know, because I have this lupus, you know, now I can't do anything and I can't get married. And you're beautiful and you've met a wonderful guy and you've got this wonderful life to look forward to. And Dr. Lehman, does she have to be concerned in terms of having children? I mean, is this something that's on her genes that she could pass to her children? I know that's something that she's thought about.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. There's a little bit of concern in the children of any mother who has any kind of a chronic disease that has a genetic basis. But what I always tell my patients is the risk is very small. We believe it's less than 1 in 50. My concern when one of my children grows up with lupus and is going on to have their own children is their health. I'm not worried about their child.
Yeah, okay. Now, is there anything that we can look forward to, anything down the pike that you have the inside track on when it comes to lupus research and cure?
There's a lot of very interesting things going on in lupus research and cure. It's always very difficult because we could stop lupus dead in its tracks, but when we did so, we'd stop your ability to fight infection. It's finding that fine line between stopping the disease but keeping your ability to fight infection so that you stay healthy that's been elusive so far. We're getting much closer.
And I want to give you a chance to give advice to family members, parents, and patients with lupus from a doctor's perspective. What would you want them to know?
You need to find a doctor with a lot of experience so that you get the latest state-of-the-art care, that you get what really is the right thing to do, not somebody who thinks this is a cookbook disease. And you need to follow those instructions. The most dangerous thing for all the patients and the parents is what I call patient fatigue. They get tired of the disease, tired of their taking their medicines. It's just like turning your back on a fire because you're tired of fighting it. It flares up and you've lost even more. You have to give it constant attention.
Yeah, and Christine, any final thoughts you'd like to share with our viewers?
I just think it's so important that regardless of getting any illness, to remain positive and to really remember what those dreams were and work with them. And I really think that I could have been frustrated, and I decided to let that out by writing or by doing the website or by helping with support groups, you know, where I live, and to really just get active and to keep those dreams, maybe just adapt them a little bit, but just to remain positive. And you have a whole world ahead of you. I just think everything happens for a reason.
That is such wonderful advice, and something that I hope our viewers can hold on to, because when you have a diagnosis like this, it can be devastating, and you just feel like, oh my gosh, my life is over, but there's so much to look forward to. Now, there is a booklet that you can get. It's a free booklet for teens, and it's about lupus, and you can get this booklet by calling toll-free 866-812-4494. Again, again, that number is 866-812-4494. It's a lot of good information in there about lupus. You can also contact the Lupus Foundation of America, and their website is lupus.org. Their phone number is 202-349-1155. And there's also the Lupus Alliance of America, and that website is info@lupusalliance.org. And the phone number there is 866-415-8787. And you know, the good news is that there's a lot more information out there, more than ever. You've got a website. There's organizations now that are focused on putting the word out. Because, you know, sometimes when doctors don't think about lupus, Dr. Lehman, you know this, it's the patient that sometimes has to bring it to the doctor and say, hey, what about lupus? You know, I think that may be something that could be a potentiality for me. Can you do a test? You know, more and more we need doctors and patients to work together in a partnership. And, you know, I'm so excited about you and your future and your tennis career. I know you're going to do just fine. And Mom, hang in there. I know it's tough. Thank you so much for watching this show. We appreciate you watching it, and we'll see you next time on Keeping Kids Healthy.
For more on today's topics, visit keepingkidshealthy.org.